Hi, I'm Luke McIntosh, creator of BecomeABassist.com, and in this lesson I'm going to answer a subscriber's question about how to solo more melodically. So the question today comes from Eugene, who writes, "Hi Luke, trust you are doing well. My question is, to improve your soloing or solo melodically, how do you use the different scales or degrees to sound more sensible rather than just running over scales and not really making sense? Hope I make sense, and thank you very much." Now this is a great question because this is a trap that a lot of musicians fall into, not just bass players, musicians of all kinds. Even I fall into this trap sometimes and I have to kind of check myself to make sure I'm doing the right thing. You see, once we get a little bit of knowledge about what we can play, it can be tempting to want to play everything that we know works. And as a result, all kind of musicality can go out the window, which is definitely something we don't want. Now I'm guessing Eugene knows what all the right notes are, they just don't make sense when it comes around to playing them, even though they're technically correct. And I'm guessing the problem is in thinking in terms of scales rather than thinking melodically. You'll come across a minor chord, play a minor scale. Come across a major chord, play a major scale. Come across some kind of dominant chord, play some kind of dominant scale. Now there's nothing inherently wrong with this, but you do run the risk of sounding very mechanical and kind of robotic and definitely very unmusical. However, the good news is this isn't a problem with you or anyone else who does this. You just need to change the approach that you take when this kind of thing happens. And the best way to do that is to use your voice. Now let me explain. When you improvise or make up bass lines, there are essentially two parts to what you're doing. There's the conception and there's the execution. The conception is what you hear in your mind before you even play anything, and the execution is actually playing that idea. Ideally, you conceive of an idea and then you play it. You conceive of a musical idea in your mind and then you execute that idea. Now it sounds to me like Eugene might be skipping the whole conception stage entirely and just jumping straight into execution, straight into playing. But ideally, you want to marry those two parts of your playing so it's like one fluid, constant idea. And the best way to do that is to sing what you already hear in your head and then play it back to yourself. So try this exercise with me. I've got a really simple backing track here, just in G Dorian. And you can find thousands of these just by searching YouTube, whichever kind of scale or sound you're working on, and then play along. And there's thousands of them. You can find the link for this one underneath this video as well. Now what I'm about to show you is a very accelerated version of how I recommend you do this. Ideally, it's better to go slow and be very sure, very methodical, very deliberate about every step in this process. But just for the time constraints, we're going to go super fast. So I'm going to put this track on. And now I'm going to try and sing something. Now, you don't have to have perfect pitch, don't even have to have a great singing voice. I don't have a great singing voice, but I can use my voice to match pitch. So let's try something super simple. Let's just try and sing the root. Have a listen and find the root. I feel like that's the root. Let's check it. It should be a G Dorian. It's a G Dorian play along, so the root should be a G. So, good. We've got a G. Good. Now, that's my very good singing voice. I apologize for that one. So now you know one note, just one note, very simple. So now what you're going to do is just take that one note and give it some rhythm. Yeah? We're breaking down the barriers between our mind and what our fingers play. That's the idea here. We're breaking down those barriers. So we're going to take that note and we're going to give it some rhythm. So we'll go dun 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 dun. Play that. See how that works? Another one. Dun, 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 dun. Very simple. We're not doing anything super fancy here. We're only using one note. But what we're doing is letting our mind dictate what we're playing, not our fingers. Yeah? So we'll try another one. Dun, 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 dun. I may have put an extra note in there. I can't remember what I wrote, what I sang. That's another thing. You've got to remember what you sing, yeah? And then the next step is to add an extra note. Even just one note is going to be fine. So, dun 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 dun. Oh, I think I messed that one up as well. We'll try again. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. Good. Da, da, dun, da, dun, da, 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 dun. Just like that. See, we're just using 2 notes now. Just 2 notes, but we're taking the barriers away from our brain, our mind, what we actually hear, and what we actually play. Now remember, at every stage of this, you want to be singing first, not playing. You want to introduce new notes, new rhythms. You want to introduce them with your mind first, sing them, and then play them. Otherwise, it can be very, very easy to just sing what you just played, rather than to play what you just sang. Does that make sense? You want your mind to dictate to your fingers what to play, not the other way around. So let's try and find some other notes now. Let's see what comes up. Let's see what our ear does. So here's our play along track again. Okay, let's try going up now instead of going down. We'll try. Dun, da, 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 dun, 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 dun. Let's try that. Okay, that's good. Let's go up even further. Okay. Dun, da, 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 dun, 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 dun. Let's try that. Okay, that's good. So that's going up even higher now. Let's try going down this time. Dun, da, 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 dun, 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 dun. Oh, let's try again. That's it. So that's another thing. If you make a mistake, don't accept it. Go back and figure out what you wanted to play and how it was different from what you actually played. That's a very important thing, because remember, at every stage, you want your mind to be dictating what your fingers are doing. So if you do make a mistake, go back and figure out what it was you're trying to say, or play rather, and then play it that way. Next, you can try finding all the notes in the scale. So we know we're playing a G Dorian scale. So without playing those notes, without playing the shape of the scale or figuring out what the notes of the scale are, let's just try and see if we can sing them. So let's grab our play along back again. So we know this is our root. I'm going to take that down an octave actually. Start down here, otherwise it'll be too high. So our notes are da 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 da. Should be that. Let's try. Let's check. 2, 3, 4. Okay, so we got the right notes. Awesome. Now the next step is to take those set of notes and try and make it musical. The exact same material, just making it musical. So let's try this. 2, 3. Dun da 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 dun 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 dun. Let's try that. 2, 3. Remember what I played. See, there we go. Now that was the same scale. That was the exact same scale, the exact same material. But can you see how when you do it this way, it comes to life? It starts breathing. It has life. This is so much different to just playing. It's so different to just playing it mechanically and robotically, because now the music is coming from your mind and not an arbitrary fingering pattern that you might know or a shape that you might know. It's coming from inside you rather than coming from a shape on the bass. Now doing this will almost force you to play more melodically, because it forces you to think more melodically. Rather than thinking in terms of scales and degrees, you're thinking in terms of melody, thinking in terms of what you're hearing rather than a shape that you're playing. And this is going to make it much more interesting to you, and it's also going to make a huge difference to everyone that listens to you as well. Now to take it a step further, all we have to do is start playing what we sing as we sing it. Now this is what you see guys like George Benson and Keith Jarrett doing. They'll be playing and they'll be singing what they're playing as they're playing it. Now some guys do this better than others. Keith Jarrett kind of moans a whole lot. George Benson's very kind of, he's dead on it with his, first of all, his pitch and also his rhythm. So let's grab our play along back on. And once again, you don't have to be fancy at the start. You can start very, very simply. But you're singing what you're playing as you're singing it. Dun, 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 dun. Just 2 notes there. Dun, 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 dun. Very, very, very simple things to start with, and then you can get into more. You can start using more notes, start using more complicated rhythms. Or just the same material we've been using before, but we're playing what we're singing as we're singing it. Now obviously, like I said, this is a very accelerated version of how I recommend you do this. You should be doing this very, very slowly, very, very methodically. But we've sped up the process for time constraints on this lesson. Now you will make mistakes, and that's totally okay. Mistakes are the best way to learn. So like we said before, if you found that you played something that wasn't what you sang, you figure out what it was you did sing and play that instead. So if you sang dun da 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 bum bum, but you actually played da da not dun dun, then you go back and you make sure dun da 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 bum bum, you play the right thing that you sang before and not the mistake that you did actually play. The idea here is to remove the barriers between the music in your head and the movement of your fingers on your bass. Now eventually you'll be able to start hearing kind of more complicated things, and then with practice you'll be able to start playing those things. You'll be able to start playing more complicated things. And if it happens to be scales that you're hearing, then use them. By all means, use all the scales that you like. But just be careful not to fall into the trap of coming across a chord, perhaps on a chord chart or something, and just defaulting to a scale. It can sound very, very kind of stilted and robotic and very unmusical, and that's what we're trying to avoid. So to recap, you learned all about how to use your voice to start playing and thinking in a more melodic way. You learned to start very, very simply, just with the root, and to start building from there. And at the very top of the kind of range of things we want to do, what we want to achieve, is playing what we're singing as we're singing it. Now, if you haven't already done it, make sure and head over to becomeabassist.com and sign up for the email newsletter, where you'll get a whole bunch of subscriber-only content and first look at all of the new lessons coming out of the Become a Bassist studio. And if you know of someone who could benefit from this lesson, make sure and send it to them. You'll be helping them out and you'll be doing me a favor as well. I'm Luke McIntosh, creator of becomeabassist.com, and I will see you in the very next lesson. Thanks for watching.